We are pleased to be joined by Andrew George, Statehouse Correspondent, NJBIZ, one of the finest publications around, particularly if you want to know what's happening in the business world. But you write a little bit about politics, do you not?
That's right. I'm based in the Statehouse.
All right, so let me ask you this. Statehouse, right? Used to be Statehouse Row, if you will. What does the row look like these days?
It's dwindling. It's dwindling.
Describe that for us, the media landscape in the Statehouse, how it's changed, A, and B. Loaded question, I know, Andrew.
Yeah.
How it's changed the coverage of what goes on in the Statehouse.
Well, let's see, I've been there a little under 4 years, and just in that small sample size, you know, you've seen some bureaus get smaller, desks go away. Just the overall, there's more seats at a Governor Christie press conference these days. That's not a good thing.
Why not?
Because if we're the ones that are supposed to, you know, hold our officials to the fire and hold them accountable, where are we? And so you look at some of our publications and across the state and where they're putting their resources into, and particularly coming off of a really hectic national election cycle. You know, we have a lot of resources being diverted elsewhere rather than here in the state, and even taking a step outside of Trenton you know, I started as a municipal reporter, and that's where there's a lot of news to be had, right? Municipal boards,
level?
School boards, town hall meetings, things like that, where you know, and even at the state level, financial boards and different government regulatory bodies, and we're not, you know, sometimes there's one or two, not even any folks in the room, and that's where I'm most worried about our resources.
And let me ask you this: devil's advocate, what would you say if I said, you know, most people decide what they want to check out in terms of media sources, so they go to media organizations, media platforms that often reinforce what they believe. All right, so they go if they're conservative leaning, they'll go to Fox. If they're more progressive, liberal, whether it's CNN or MSNBC. On the TV side, they'll go to websites. Breitbart on one side, and God knows wherever on, you know, I don't even know what would be. Help me on this team, whether it's political or wherever else. I don't want to political. Okay, whatever it is, but it reinforces what they already believe.
Right.
What's wrong with that?
Well, I think if the Times and the Journal are sitting at the table trying to figure out why that's an issue, that's a valid question to have. But when we're talking about Statehouse media, we're talking about New Jersey newspapers, New Jersey media entities. Politics is local. I know that's...
is that true?
I do believe so, because if you go to, you know, a lot of times you'll have a big paper take up a small town issue, and what happens? Maybe that issue that wasn't, you know, there was no one going to a school board meeting. That next night there's not going to be seating there. These things catch fire, and folks are concerned about what's going on in their own communities.
So then all of a sudden a decision is made at the local level, and all of a sudden millions of dollars are being spent or not being spent to do something. An environmental decision has been made. You go, hey, what happened?
Right.
What happened?
That's why we need to be there.
But here's the thing. Where's the hue and cry from local citizens saying, I want more local coverage. Where's my local newspaper? Is it a catch-22 kind of thing?
Totally catch-22. And you never want to malign your readers, but a lot of times we say we want to eat our vegetables, but all we want is candy, right? And we say we want more local news, and we want our newspapers to be in our communities, and we want our local officials to be held to the fire. We can't if, you know, we're clicking on things that are not that important to us.
All right, 2017 New Jersey, post Chris Christie is going to be a governor's race. We're doing this program, and hopefully we're going into the spring soon. The weather will get warmer. 2017. We don't know who the candidates are going to be. This program may also be seen after the primaries. But here's the thing. Post Chris Christie, what do you think that election will be like, and what will it be fought over? What kinds of issues?
Well, what Governor Christie has done in a lot of his big announcements, you know, policy announcements as well as bill signings, and sometimes it draws a smirk from one or two of us, is that he says, you know, I'm taking care of this now so that the next governor doesn't have to worry about it. And in the case of a $300 million State House renovation, there's a lot of eye rolling. But in the case of something like the
back up. Why eye rolling about fixing the State House?
Maybe that's not the top agenda item of an incoming gubernatorial candidate.
There was some skepticism about that?
A little bit.
Okay,
yes.
just checking.
Just checking.
And how about the stuff about opiate addiction?
Very valid issue, and I think that is I mean, he's already indicated, it's a clear indicator that that's going to be his legacy issue, and that's something he's going to work towards the end. And from the response it's been getting from everyday folks, I would imagine that's something that I don't know if the next governor is going to take up as strong, but it would be silly to just put it to the side.
So let's talk about issues that really do matter.
Yeah.
How serious is the pension crisis in the state for public employees, and the fact that more and more of them are going to retire? When they retire, their pensions have to be paid. It's, I don't know, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 billion dollars of, what is it called? What, money owed? Is that what we're going to call it?
I don't think there's going to be a bigger issue coming into 2017.
Explain that to folks who may not get it.
Because if you asked me this a year ago, I would have told you it was the Transportation Trust Fund or
Money to fix roads and bridges.
Infrastructure spending. And that is, for all intents and purposes, currently put aside, right? There's going to be some debate on the campaign trail, and that's something that I'm hearing some concern about. And we could talk more about that as well. But I do think the pension issue is going to come front and center, because that's the biggest issue that's still left without having been given attention to at this point. It's left unresolved. And there are a lot of pensioners in this state and a lot of pensioners that vote. So
how do you get people to care? How do you get the average person, not a public employee, not someone who's going to retire, Andrew, and be in a position to receive those pension benefits or not, to care about this?
You got to make it. You got to showcase how, even if you're not receiving a pension, maybe you're putting your money into that system. I think that's a great opportunity for a Republican candidate to make his or her case about, why real reform is needed.
You mean reforming the relationship between the state and public employees?
Reforming, I would say so. I would say
you're talking about cutting benefits?
No,
because reform is a funny word.
I understand.
It means different things to different people.
No, I understand. But we look back at some of the tough talk the governor has used on this issue, and that hasn't been ill-received by his supporters. In a primary season when these discussions are ramped up and emotions are high, I could see a Republican candidate kind of doubling down on those efforts.
You could?
I could.
And Phil Murphy in this, we don't know what's going to be happening. You're smiling as I say it because?
I would imagine any Democrat, whether it's Phil Murphy or not, is going to look to become a champion of the pensioners. I mean, that's something that I fully expect.
The media environment, before I let you out of here, the relationship between the media and the Trump administration, you say?
I covered Trump once when he was in New Jersey, and it was, it was tough. It's the same experience that we've seen, on national broadcasts where, he says something about the media, everyone turns around and yells their words at us, and that doesn't, hurt us personally. Professionally, it's concerning going forward. Number one, for the folks that deal with that administration every day, but the trickle-down effect of, how does that relay into the state level? There's a lot of distrust in the media. That's something that is, whether valid or not, it's evident.
Last question. For those who don't know NJBIZ, and we have a promotional relationship with NJBIZ, what is the publication?
We're a business journal, statewide business journal. We are always looking for the intersection between politics and business, and whether you're a businessman and businesswoman or not, everything does end up relating back to business.
And also check you out online, njbiz.com.
That's right.
Andrew George, Statehouse Correspondent. It may be dwindling, but the Statehouse row, if you will, but it's still important work going on at NJBIZ. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it, buddy. Stay right there. We'll be right back right after this.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by the Russell Berry Foundation, Virtua, the Northward Center, Adler Aphasia Center, the law firm of Gibbons PC, Wells Fargo, and by Verizon. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.